So the NCAA apparently is still out there. Hey, how about that? And like for this? Wait. For a COVID dead period violation? So every article that I read that is like Harbaugh's facing a penalty, a level 1 investigation, notice of infraction, it all sounds so official. It all sounds like so serious. What did they do? Oh my gosh. Are they going to have to vacate wins? Is he going to be suspended? What's going on? COVID dead period? What are we talking about? Playoffs? And what an analyst was like coaching a player impermissible? I'm sorry. Like, what are we doing?
Joel Klatt. COVID playoffs? COVID dead period playoffs? I can't get enough of that soundbite from Joel Klatt. I listened to it a few times today. That's why I was bringing it to all of you. Joel Klatt does not care about the violations that Michigan committed at all. He doesn't like the rules. He doesn't offer any solutions. But you listen to Joel Klatt, it's like, let's just not have any rules in college football. And COVID dead period. Come on, playoffs. That was from the Joel Klatt podcast. Good job, Joel. Got everybody worked up. You got Michigan fans like, I always thought I liked Joel Klatt. And you got other people like, Joel Klatt's a jerk. So he's done his job there. Welcome in. It is the Good Afternoon Michigan Football and Basketball show here on the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, and we're kicking this one off. We're here every day, weekdays at 1 o'clock, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And it doesn't feel like because it's not almost every single day this year. It's been like explosive drama, like all over the place. Everything's going crazy. Everything could be just turned upside down in Ann Arbor. And today we're getting into like you're just regular off-season drama, like recruiting. And you're going to be able to get a 5-star superstar quarterback to next year. You're going to be able to get in late on a superstar 5-star tight end, defensive end before February 1st. I mean, all those kind of things. That's the kind of drama that you want when you're a Michigan fan after last season and looking to next season. And we're going to bring you a little bit of that kind of drama today. And what else? Well, I got a couple other things. We've got a fast Nyckoles Harbor update specifically. We've got an outlook for Jadyn Davis, the quarterback out of Charlotte, Providence Day High School in North Carolina. He's provided some fresh quotes. We'll analyze them. But the biggest thing going on right now for Michigan, and it's good. They have an opening with their coaching staff at the quarterback coach position, who the quarterback coach was also the offensive coordinator last year, or co-offensive coordinator, whatever you believe, and whoever you believe. You could say that the play caller position is open at Michigan. That's a pretty big spot. And then the quarterback coach, that is also a big spot, and that's where we're going to start. It's a great job. I mean, there's jobs and there's jobs. And I saw Bill O'Brien is going back just this morning. The former Patriots offensive coordinator, and then what was it, Penn State, then a head coach of the Houston Texans, and then he was down there with Nick Saban and Alabama as their OC, and now he is back to see if he can do something with Mac Jones, right, in New England, see if they can get something going there. So there's an opening. It's a very plum job. We have seen it from different coaches, whether they're rehabbing their profile or elevating them. Of course, you go to Alabama, and it's a nice place to go to be able to get yourself some shine. And Bill O'Brien has been able to do that, and now they have an opening down there. Will there be any wires crossed between the two? Potentially, maybe. We'll think about that a little bit. But when you look at the quarterback position for Michigan right now, when you have JJ McCarthy, if you're a potential quarterback coach, that's a great. Like Michigan has one of the analysts, Kirk Campbell is his name, and he's in the running. Michigan could very easily just promote from within, bump Campbell up as the quarterback coach. Sharon Moore would just be your offensive coordinator calling the shots, and then away you go. And that could happen. I mean, if you want to pick that, there's a very good chance of that happening. But for Campbell, that would be awesome. That's an awesome job. Well, as you start looking through everybody's resume and start talking about, well, what about this guy? What about that guy? What do you do? The first thing, like, well, what kind of quarterbacks did he coach? What kind of success did they have? Well, next year, Michigan is, we all know it. They're going to have a lot of success. They might win it all. They're certainly going to be in the mix to win it all, and they're the favorite in the Big Ten. And McCarthy, however you want to break it down, I saw a lot of different breakdowns about the best quarterbacks. He's one of the best. Caleb Williams is clearly the best, but you want to make a case that JJ McCarthy is the second best quarterback coming back over Penix or May or anybody else that you want to throw it. He's up there. You could make that case. So it's a great spot. So we'll get into some of these candidates, and I threw out a bunch of names yesterday, and then there was some clarity from inside the Maize and Blue review by Josh Henske about who Michigan was contacting, and we'll tell you about that. And then I bunched some names, and some people here were throwing some names up, and I put those on a list. So I think this is everything that you'd want to know about Michigan's pursuit of their next quarterback coach and or offensive coordinator. And then we will have an update on Nyckoles Harbor, the speedster from out east, and then the quarterback from Providence Day. We always take your feedback. We'll take your calls. We take your feedback. It's easily done. Feedback-wise, it's all up, and Antoine leads us off. Let's see a little bit of what's going on with the feedback. Antoine saying coaching is without a doubt more important than recruiting when it comes to this hire. You can be the best player athletically, but without training and direction, you're just an athlete. Antoine, I agree with that. There's a lot of people when you have a job open up, they're like, we need a pit bull recruiter. We need somebody that's a bulldog recruiting, out there. And, that sounds good. Okay. Yeah. Get a great recruiter. Recruiting to me is like playing defense in basketball. You have to want to be a great recruiter. You have to get down there and get after it as a recruiter. Are some people not personable? Do some people not can't engage with 16 and 17-year-olds and their parents? Sure. Well, then I don't know. Is college for you? Is college coaching for you if you can't connect? I mean, that is part of the job. So it's picking up the phone, it's smiling and dialing, and then being able to have those relationships and connecting. It is a want to when it comes down to recruiting. Give me a great coach over the recruiter every single time. Now it's a little bit of chicken and egg stuff because you got to have great players if you want to be a great team. There's, we all know guys that, were 2 stars and ended up being great and all that. This is not really the argument. It's that what you hear this time of year. And when you have coaching openings that let's just get a recruiter in here. And, Harbaugh can take care of everything with a quarterback coach. You want both. That's what you want. But, you can't just ignore recruiting. I was listening today, and it reminded me of the conversation that we are having right now. They were talking about the championship games this Sunday, and this Bills caller had called in, and he said, the problem with Josh Allen is it's not his talent. This is the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills this guy was talking about. Josh Allen was on track a year ago. His trajectory was to be, overtake Patrick Mahomes, and everybody in Buffalo thought that was going to be the case. But then you saw him on Sunday, and you saw him this year. He got real turnover prone, turnover happy, and wasn't throwing the ball like he was last year. Down in the red zone, they were dicey. And you say, well, what's the issue? Well, Brian Daboll was his guy last year, and he took the job as the head coach of the New York Giants. And you saw what he did with Danny Dimes, with the G-men. He's going to be coach of the year in the NFL. And the guy's saying, Allen was and Daboll, that was a really important coach and player relationship. So yeah, you want that coach. Now, I was asking the question about yesterday, if you would ask JJ McCarthy what he thought of quarterback coaches. Certainly, what he would think about, the Campbell, the analyst. Of course, you ask that question, and if he's really adamant, like if JJ McCarthy's telling Harbaugh, is like, last year everything that Campbell said came true. He wanted this particular footwork. He had me on the zone read. He was telling me that we wanted to run the ball. Whatever it is, I mean, that could be major input. Is Harbaugh just going to listen? Like, if McCarthy was totally endorsing this analyst and be like, no, okay, JJ, great, but let's take a look at. No, I think that's going to be a huge part of it. Now, I asked the question on the feedback, if you would ask somebody like Jadyn Davis, who is your top quarterback recruit for 24, if Harbaugh and Davis, Davis said he's talking constantly with Harbaugh. So they've talked since Matt Weiss is on the outside looking in, and there's a vacancy here. Do you think Harbaugh, asked Jadyn Davis what he thought about the open position for quarterback? And Antoine, he's calling, some of these guys divas, and, he's getting tired. I get folks and Michigan fans like Antoine who don't like to deal with recruiting, or they deal with it, but guys that are playing teams along and slow playing their decisions, they don't have any time for it. The recruiting drama. I get that, because there are many people that I know, Antoine. There's a former player that I talk with, and he sounds just like you every time I talk with him. He's like, if this guy doesn't want to come, screw him. There's plenty of other players out there. And if you don't want to go to Michigan, get out. Try to find somebody else. But meanwhile, like when you're immensely talented and you have every school in the country making you wild offers all the time, and you can be a little bit indecisive. It's a big decision, so waiting to the end, I get that part. And so playing that game, you could call them divas. I just call them playing out their options while they have a chance. Now, if you're telling people one thing and not another, those are hard things. That's why a lot of people don't get involved with the recruiting game. It burns really hot. You've got wild swings of emotion. One day it looks like you're totally in and you're ready to get somebody, and the next day the rug's pulled out. A lot of people can't handle that. I don't, that's, some people like it. They like the slot machine type mentality of recruiting. Always just loading it up. Let's go. I'm more of a slow burn when it comes down to that, but I get, that mentality that Antoine is talking about when it comes to recruiting. All right, let's get to some of the names that are emerging. Josh Henschke, I mentioned him, the Maize and Blue Review publisher. He put out a tweet yesterday saying multiple sources have confirmed that Jim Harbaugh has been in contact with 49ers Brian Griese, the quarterback coach of the 49ers, who will be in Philadelphia this Sunday to take on the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. He also mentions Stanford's Tavita Pritchard. He's got the obvious connection with Harbaugh going all the way back to 2010. And then the other name is the Baltimore Ravens. We all know the connections there. T. Martin, the quarterback coach with the Ravens. Remember, they have an opening at offensive coordinator with Greg Roman moving on. So Martin, Pritchard, and Griese. Here's some names that you can think about and say, ooh, who do you want? What do you like? You start looking at, and sometimes it's just, it's a gut feel for you. And let's start with Brian Griese. He is he was the starting quarterback on the championship team from '97. Everybody, I think, would know that. I think he comes back every year. I saw him 4 years ago, charity-wise in the summer. I think he comes back every summer. He's still connected very much with the program. Played in the pros from '98 to '08. 3 years ago, he did put a tweet out that said enough is enough. And the graph that he put up underneath it was Harbaugh's record against Ohio State, 0-5 at the time, and some other not so glowing things about Harbaugh's record against top 25 teams. I don't remember exactly which ones were, but it was like basically like one that you say enough is enough. I don't need to translate that for you, but to call Griese, if you're Harbaugh, you could say he wouldn't call him after he, was, saying that he wanted him fired. Well, this shows you like, hey, going after and making contact and, seeing where Griese's at, like you're not holding a grudge because of that. That's good. Well, he had to do that with Mike Hart. Jim Harbaugh could have been, Michigan Mike Hart, was blasting me back when I was at Stanford. Water under the bridge. Looks like, water under the bridge with Brian Griese. Griese, you're familiar. You saw him on Monday night for that year, and then the long time in the college game as a college analyst, and now just this 1 year as quarterback coach in the pros. But it's a pretty significant year. They brought him in, Trey Lance. They had a top 3 pick, and you're working for Kyle Shanahan, who's however you want to rank the NFL coaches or offensive minds, he's up there. And so you got Griese with Shanahan and Trey Lance, and then Lance goes down, and then it's Jimmy G, and then Jimmy G goes down, and then they're bringing in Mr. Irrelevant in Brock Purdy, who has gone 7-0, including now winning 2 playoff games. And you saw him at the end of if you were watching the game, probably were, on Sunday when Purdy almost blew it there at the half, trying to just kill the clock. And there was 1 second left, and they cut to the sideline, and Shanahan was, kind of like screaming into his Denny's menu. And then there was Griese, standing next to Purdy. So, would Griese, the pros of Brian Griese coming to Michigan, and you would think that to be a co-offensive coordinator, he's a Michigan man. And I know some people that works against you, saying that he's a Michigan man. It doesn't work against, I don't hold it against it. I think it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. People that have been at Michigan, that love Michigan, and that are, quote unquote, Michigan men, I like it. In fact, I love it. I don't think you can get enough Michigan men. And so, anytime I see somebody like rolling their eyes and saying, oh boy, another Michigan man, it's like, yeah, he's got a connection to Ann Arbor. He loves it. So that's a good thing to me. He played quarterback in the pros for a long time, like Jim Harbaugh. So he's got that experience. And then just the 1 year coaching. I like all of that from a coaching standpoint. I think he would be an excellent quarterback coach. And you say, well, what about recruiting? Well, what about recruiting? Like, can't Griese pick up a phone? He knows everybody. Everybody would know him. I think he could make a lot of inroads. It's unknown, but like I said, is he a real dud or something? Like when he gets on the phone, like, hey, how you doing? I mean, I think he could be fine. So I like Brian Griese. You could say, well, he's just had 1 year as a coach. Yeah, fine. But he's been around the game, and I don't hold it against Griese for being a college and pro commentator. I think a lot of people do because of Matt Millen. Understood, but I don't look at it like that myself. So, and maybe John Gruden, too. I think you could hold that against him. But I think that it would be an excellent hire. Now, what about T. Martin? T. Martin is known as a great recruiter. So Michigan fans like, ooh, recruiting. T. Martin. I love recruiting. Can you imagine the kind of recruiting that T. Martin could do? Yeah, T. Martin is personable. He can recruit. He's I got a picture of him up on the screen. Good looking dude. He can get out there and connect with the high school players. Now, what kind of coach is he? You've had some when he was at Tennessee and it didn't work out there. It was with Pruitt. That was a terrible time. Everybody bad mouthing everybody with the fouls, and T included, who also was out there at USC when things weren't going so well. And they had to, with Clay Helton, and they blew that whole thing up. So you can say, well, what kind of coach is he? And I think that's an all right question to ask. It doesn't mean that he can't be a good offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach because he was out at USC and they moved on from him. And then, things didn't work on with Tennessee either. I mean, it is part of his resume, and I understand why people would ask that, but I don't immediately rule that out. And it is a real positive that he is known as a great recruiter. He is in Baltimore right now as a wide receivers coach. I'm sure that he would enjoy being the OC of Baltimore. They have the opening there if they stay in-house, but a viable candidate for Michigan, a guy that was born in the South in Alabama. We all know went to Tennessee, won a championship as the quarterback in 98, the first year in the BCS when they had the BCS. After Michigan 97 and the split championships, they went to 98, the BCS, where those two would have played. Nebraska and Michigan. And then Tennessee won it. And then he, spent some time in the pros with the Steelers, the Eagles for a second, the Raiders, played in NFL Europe for the Rhine Fire, the Canadian League with the Blue Bombers, and then started in 2006 as a coach. Morehouse passing game coordinator in high school for a couple of years, out to New Mexico, Kentucky as a passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, USC wide receivers. USC passing game coordinator. Just looking at USC, I didn't go through this, but from 2012 to 2018, a lot of good wide receivers there from USC. Would Juju be involved in there? I think so. And then in Tennessee for a couple of years, assistant head coach, wide receivers coach, and now with the Ravens. And there's a championship. I don't know, Griese or Martin, make the call. These would be the two for me. Out of all the names that I've seen, that's why I went to these two immediately. Griese, Martin. A little light on experience for Griese, but the Michigan man, Martin, a great recruiter, not 100% sure how he connects as a coach. Hey, I got to interview both of these guys and sit down and look at them across the desk. And then I got to ask JJ McCarthy, and I'm going to ask Jadyn Davis too. Hey, Jadyn, what do you think about these guys? If he lights up, said, I know T. Martin, that could make a decision for me. If I knew I was going to get Davis, I would weigh that. You might not like that, but out of all of the other candidates, these are the two for me. T. Martin and Brian Griese. Now, because you have to wait potentially for Griese, because if the 49ers win on Sunday, then it's another 2 weeks into the Super Bowl. You might want to say, look, I like both of these guys. T is good to go. You might go with T, but these are the top two, T. Martin and Brian Griese to me. We're going to get the feedback and see what the people are thinking. Another name that Henschke had mentioned was the current Stanford offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. It would be a step up. This would not be a lateral move, even though just in terms of OC and quarterback coach, I can see why you would say that. I think everybody knows where Michigan's program is and where Stanford's is. That's why it would be a step up for Tavita Pritchard, 35 years old, a youngster. He's all West Coast. So that's something you think like that used to totally matter. Like, where's his Midwest connections? He's got none. He was born in Tacoma. He played quarterback at Stanford. And then he went, when he was done, as the QB of Stanford, and went right in as a GA with the Cardinal, and then as a defensive assistant, a running backs coach, and then where he has been since 2014 with the quarterbacks, and then in 2018 as an offensive coordinator. So he's got the experience over somebody like Griese, and with Martin, practical, right on experience with the QBs and as an offensive coordinator. But it's the West Coast part and piece. Hey, recruit Cali, get out there in Seattle. But you got to be able to get over here in the Midwest. Am I going to hold that against him? It's a little something that you got to think about that. So he's got the best resume. T. Martin, the best recruiter. Griese, the Michigan man who seems like it could be a home run if you connect with him on an interview. And that's where you get to this part where people are like, make a decision. Which guy do you want? Look, a lot of the times it comes down to, like with these three guys, he just mentioned it. One of them's got the resume. The other one's known as a great recruiter. You're not 100% sure about the coaching, just from what we talked about. Griese, a little bit unsure about the coaching experience, but look at his overall experience. So you have all these things that you weigh, and then the meeting, and then the interview, and then the conversations that you have. It's like that in recruiting. It's like that when you meet a girl, you meet your future wife. I mean, you could take your pick of 10 ladies, back in the day or whenever. And then you talk with one, and even though you didn't click, and then sometimes it's just like, wow, man, I totally clicked. That's the way it is with people. It's the way it is with recruiting. It's the way it is with coaching. I don't know how much Harbaugh's talked with T. Martin. I know that he'll talk with John, and John could say, T, you love T. T is charismatic. Guy's going to be a head coach one day. You're going to get a pretty good assessment of T. Martin from John Harbaugh. And then if you talk with him and all the things that you're saying, when you look at him in the eye, you're like, man, T's the guy. I feel like T's the guy. If I had to pick without, I would like for Harbaugh to have me in on the interviews. I don't think that's going to happen. I haven't contacted him and said I'd sit in there with the interviews with him. But so T is at the top of my list. That's how I'm looking at it. Let's see what the people are saying when it comes down to the open job. And yesterday, I had a lot of different names. I took Cliff Kingsbury off the list, although maybe he would go, he seems like a much better fit for Alabama. And like I said yesterday, I was just making a list to have a list and just throwing names, out there. But yesterday on the feedback, the people mentioned Nick Sheridan, the former Michigan QB, offensive coordinator at Indiana, now tight end coach at Washington. I put his name on the list. Devin Gardner was mentioned yesterday. I really like Devin Gardner. Is it a weak spot that I like Michigan, former Michigan players? I don't think so. But I was just thinking, why do I like Devin Gardner? He's a Michigan man, and he's got a great personality. I don't know what kind of coach he is, except that I've seen him on the TV working the out in Ann Arbor a couple of years ago, like I said yesterday. Campbell's in the mix. Roman, just because the Raven, he's got Ravens and Harbaugh. He's got Jim and John experience. I mean, what are we talking about here? Roman, I think you got to be Roman ready if you're a Michigan fan. When you think about both Jim and John, I think you should probably be Roman ready. AJ says, why would you ask a kid about his coaching preference when you can't even get him to commit or even ask him to decide? Yeah, well, like, because you want him to come to your school and he's a 5-star and he can be a program changer. And how do you win? You get great quarterbacks, you get great players. The hardest position to recruit, quarterback. What's Michigan whiffed on the last 2 years? Quarterback. Who they got all their eggs in the basket with? Jadyn Davis and quarterback. That's why you ask Jadyn Davis. It doesn't mean like Jadyn Davis is like, I don't like any of those guys, but Devin Gardner I like. Oh, that's it. We're bringing in Devin Gardner. So Ant is saying apparently months and months of recruiting is not good enough. Again, I get it. I get what you're saying, Ant. His feedback is ask another kid that apparently is not a diva to go to another school like Colorado who hasn't even recruited him, but that's not drama. Yeah, again, you don't like the drama, and I get that. You got to put up with some of that drama. What about the kid that Michigan got this year, Jair Hill, the corner out of Illinois? Remember a couple days before the early signing period, like you had heard Michigan all along, Michigan. He likes Michigan. He really likes Illinois. It was like a Michigan-Illinois battle. A couple days before signing day, he puts out on Instagram, like a nice little a picture of all the schools he's considering. Illinois and Michigan's not on there. Like, well, wait a second. This whole time you went all this time. Well, the kid was just having fun. The signing day came along and he was like, I'm going to Michigan. So I don't know. Like, I'm not holding it against Hill. I mean, he's 17, 18 years old. That's it. I mean, if you were playing this way, like, or if I was acting this way, I mean, Harbaugh's a little bit like that. He's like a 5-star coach, though. Not all 5 stars or the best coaches, have, drama or, have this flair to them or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, Jadyn Davis and Harbaugh, maybe that's like they're 2 peas in a pod. Maybe same thing with Nyckoles Harbor. Harbor and Davis and Harbaugh on a 3-way call. Like, hey, we're all pretty diva-ish. Let's all win a championship. Maybe. Yeah, the thing about Bill O'Brien is if Michigan 3 years ago during the COVID, if they would have moved on, I think certainly people wanted the Iowa State head coach, and that's likely who it would have been. But Bill O'Brien would have been on a list for a Michigan coach as well. A lot of people are like, Bill O'Brien, but, Bill O'Brien. Yes, he was. Stephen is not asking Davis about the future coach. He doesn't think we need another OC. Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, usually you have, like, since we don't really know what the dynamic is, you can take it any way you want. Like, I think that Sharon Moore should just be the offensive coordinator. But you had the Coes from last year. You don't even know how that worked out. And then yet you have to strengthen your team if you want it, this plum position of play caller or co-offensive play caller. I, tend to think with where Sharon Moore was ready to take over from Jim Harbaugh for a second 2 weeks ago when Harbaugh was zooming with the Broncos. And then Harbaugh also, when he's talked about Sharon Moore, I mean, he just couldn't talk about him in any more like glowing terms. Like, he basically said Sharon Moore's the greatest thing ever. So, yeah, I think Sharon Moore is going to be the offensive coordinator. And so any of these guys, are they just coming in, the aforementioned coaches, as just the quarterback coach? I don't think T. Martin is. I don't think Brian Griese is. The 2 guys that are on the top of my list. But do I think Kirk Campbell, if they stay in-house as the analyst, obviously a promotion, getting bumped up as QB coach, and then Sharon Moore is just the offensive coordinator? That's why it is the most likely thing to happen, Stephen, because you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about Sharon Moore, and you've gone through in your mind how much Harbaugh likes him, and are you really bringing in another guy and saying, okay, now you guys work and share because it's a weird thing to begin with. We don't even know. I don't even know if I believe it. I think they might just be saying it just to give the guys the title. And if that is the case, Moore now, like, there is a real chance that they just had it in name only, Moore and Weiss, co-offensive coordinators, because when push comes to shove, somebody's got to call the shot. I'd like to know who called the shot for the Philly special. Maybe I think it was Matt Weiss. But were they like flipping a coin? Like, you make the call. You make the call on this series. I got the second series. Like, when you start thinking it through, how you are a co-offensive coordinator and who's calling the plays on game day, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you put the headset on. Jim's on the headset. Sharon's on the headset. Weiss is on the headset. Go ahead. Your call. You make the call. I mean, they've got some seconds to get through that, but I think, sometimes one of them's able to come in like, yeah, how about this play? But I think mostly somebody is making the final call. You need to have that. So I hear what you're saying. Antoine says he doesn't want to lose Sharon Moore by getting a big name unless he knows his role as a supplement to Sharon. Exactly. I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. OT is a very opinionated feedback contributor, and he is saying we need a recruiter. We have a bunch of great coaches. You want both, OT? Well, you want T, OT. OT says Kirby Smart said, if you have the players, you'll have the coaches, and he's winning championships. Bring those players in. Steven says you definitely want great coaches and great talent. Great coaches coaching lesser talent tends to be better than lesser coaches coaching greater talent. It's a lot of coaching stuff. The coaching and lesser talent tends to be better than lesser coaches. Yeah, I agree with that. You need them both. You want them both. OT wants that blend in the staff. Andres is saying Georgia actually has all of that. Rico says U of M is stupid for only pursuing a single guy. I think he's talking about Jadyn Davis. Well, the whole strategy of last year of saying that they were going to put all their eggs in the Dante Moore basket, and they did, and that basket went to Oregon, UCLA. And then they're like, we're going to put all of our eggs in the Jadyn Davis basket. And now here they are. Stupid? Well, Rico, if Jadyn Davis goes somewhere else, I think what you're saying, and it's harsh, I think is true. But we got a little time to let this play out. Count 22 likes the T. Martin suggestion. Travis Smith making a prediction saying Griese is not coming to Michigan. Unfortunately, would have been nice. You talked to Griese, Travis? I got his email. Maybe I'll shoot him an email. Hey, Brian, you in? You in? You out? What's up? Nobody's ever said this to me before. Just going to leave that there on the screen. Okay, let's get to some recruiting. You want to know what's going on with all of this recruiting? Who's coming in this weekend? It's a big weekend. A lot of different players are coming in. You want to know what's the latest with the pursuit of the quarterback coach / offensive coordinator? Here's how you do it. Here's how you know before everyone else. No drama, no gossip. the facts, and the best in the business. Josh Henschke working it on the Maize and Blue Review. You can get all this info when you join up to the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I'd love to see you over there. I'm spending my a good portion of the day on the Den talking with Michigan fans. Now, there is some drama when it comes. Like us, Henschke doesn't have much. He's not a real like drama, gossipy type insider. Like he knows his stuff. He's proof. I have seen his work. I am working with him. You say, well, you're going to be biased. I know all of these guys. He's not drama. He's straight to the point, and he brings the goods. So you're looking for that approach. Josh Henschke at Maize and Blue Review. This is your place. But you like drama, you like gossip. Boy, the posting board supplies that. Yesterday, for hours, I was reading a thread about the relationship between Jim Harbaugh and Ward Manuel. And you could say, well, how much could actually be said about these two? Well, there's a lot that's being said. Ward's this, Jim's that. They don't get along. They do get along. What about, everything under the sun? I found it amazing. The contributions from the people on there and what they know and what they remember and the everything. I found it entertaining and amazing. You like that kind of drama? That is provided as well. Here's somebody else doesn't think Griese's coming. I don't think that's happening. Yeah. Oh, Rico, I knew this was going to happen. He doesn't like that Michigan man stuff. No. There's a lot of people that are like that, Rico. I get it. I tell you, I am guilty. I'm biased towards the Michigan man idea. I like it. Everyone hit that like button. That's a great suggestion, Logan. Richard asking Rico about being a Michigan man. Maybe we could spend a whole show talking about being a Michigan man. He just wants the best man for the job. Devin would be a great recruiter. All right, let's get to some of those. Speaking of recruiting players, I had a friend of mine send me a direct message video yesterday, and it caught my attention because it was Nyckoles Harbor, and he was running in a track meet, and he ran, and my friend's a huge track guy. And track guys, this might sound a little like obvious, they're really into the numbers and what it means. And my friend said for a football player at 6'5", 235 pounds, to run the 60 meters in 6.64, that's a great time for an elite track runner. For a football player at 6'5", 235 is extraordinary. And Nick Harbor, when you hear, boy, he's a track star. And I don't know, I wasn't able to confirm this. I was looking through it a little bit, like the best numbers in high school history. The guy that I put the tweet up for, I would have included his name, but I had to trim it off there. But he was indicating that the 6.64 60 meter time by Harbor was the 11th best recorded time in high school history. So, the possibility, and the guy was, he was a track nut, with, he wasn't like, suggesting it. He sounded like he knew what he was talking about. But Nick Harbor, that's why Michigan is, and everyone else is so fired up to get this guy. And they're like, well, he wants to play offense, but, he's best playing defense. Put him out at wide receiver. I want to see what a 6'5", 235 wideout that's going to run a 6.64 is going to look like. It's going to look pretty good, is what it's going to look like. He can play anywhere he wants on the field. Nick Harbor, and, sure, Dion had him on Dion's an attractive, and Boulder right now is a very attractive destination. And yeah, but Michigan still, I don't know, South Carolina is right there. Maryland wants him. Everybody wants this guy. But Michigan they're there, and they're in with a chance. LSU really wants him. Nyckoles Harbor. I put his name up there because he ran a 6.64 60 meter, which is really, you don't even have to look at anything else. Mark talking about Usain Bolt, 6'5", 208. Maybe the ideal height and weight size for human sprint speed. Yeah, I don't know. I watched the video. I'd like to know who some of the other guys that were running in there too, because they were right with him. But then I took a screenshot, and it's like he does kind of blast out. Got pretty good closing speed there at the end. This is true. You still have to catch the ball and run routes. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, that's what, okay. I know. But what if he can catch the ball? What if he's great? I want him. I want Nyckoles Harbor to go to Michigan. So I understand, playing the game till February 1st. Okay. The next possibility is Jadyn Davis. And we've got some fresh quotes from Davis, the quarterback out of Providence Day in North Carolina. He was asked about Matt Weiss's exit, and he said, still have the same love for Michigan. That's a quote. Quote, still have the same love for Michigan. He says he's been in constant communication with Harbaugh. He says he's not going to rush into any decisions. Now, this is where some people, they want, they need, they have to have a decision. Remember, he is not for 2023. He's not coming in this year. He is for the following year. I see people like, put a deadline on him. Michigan has painted themselves into a corner a little bit with Davis because this is the only guy. Although, was it last week? Just last week or the week before? Harbaugh was out in Arizona, at least talking with the number one quarterback recruit in 24, Raiola, while Davis was being entertained by some Ohio State staffers. I think I don't know exactly how all that went. So if you're like, they never gave him an in-home, okay, I'm just saying, I could be wrong on that. That was like the discussion, some of the discussion points last week. I know you could be right on top of that, but they painted themselves in the corner a little bit with just saying, hey, this is our guy. This is the guy we want. He's the apple of our eye. There's no one else. And if he ends up going somewhere else, well, yeah, Michigan is left, with nothing. But the transfer portal, and I know it hasn't been great for Jim Harbaugh, but across it's still not I'm going to say it was a bad option. It's a pretty decent option. I mentioned Caleb Williams a little bit earlier in the show. He was in the transfer portal. Some people think Bo Nix at Oregon. He started out at Auburn. You could probably name about 20 quarterbacks. In fact, if we looked at the top 20 quarterbacks, besides McCarthy, Penix is a transfer portal quarterback. Besides May and McCarthy, most of the quarterbacks are transfer portal quarterbacks. So it's not the end of the world. I'm not already, but I like getting a quarterback commitment. I liked it how, whatever it was 3 years ago, McCarthy committed, and then he was the ringleader for the class. I liked it 2 years ago when Will Johnson committed early, and he was the orchestrator of the class. Last year, they didn't really have that guy. That's why getting Davis be nice to get him sooner rather than later, but it'd be really nice to get him. And he's got some really good teammates too, which would be nice as an aside. But then he could go out and pretty much tell everybody, hey, come on here. We want you, 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 and you. And you're all coming in. So it's a big deal when it comes down to it. Michigan should just start recruiting other quarterbacks. Don't put a deadline on him, but definitely open up their board. Account 22 says OSU had Davis as a last option. He won't forget that disrespect. Disrespect. Let's see what Antoine, he's the one that loves recruiting with the guys, the 5 stars that play it out to the end. He's not worried about Harbor or Davis. If they come, great. If they don't, whatever. Okay. I hear you. Even the starters, Penix, Martinez, needed different teams to star. Yeah, well, like that's it. I mean, there's a chance with the transfer portal that you're out there. You know, the idea of some of the guys that are still that you could be interested in. Do I think, if you're asking me, do I think that Michigan should open it up? I think they already have. They talked to Raiola. To me, that was a sign that they're opening it up. They weren't just one guy. They had a conversation with Raiola. And if it plays out into next week and there's still some some QBs that they think, then they will start talking with them. So I already think that they have done that. Although, if that's the way Davis is going, it's a tough one. Fletch is making a prediction. He thinks Davis is coming in and Harbor's not. I'll take that. But I want them both. I want them both, Fletch. That's where it's at when it comes down as I'm talking about all this. All right, so that's how I see it. Some of the feedback here in the final moments. Andres thinks they're both coming in. Venice, better late than never, coming in. He's making a prediction about LSU, unfortunately. I see it. One more from AJ, who is saying that it's getting tiring of the BS. Dennis, you act like Michigan just started recruiting Jadyn Davis. There's nothing more for him to figure out or see. Yeah, I know. I got it. I know. There have been other guys, but what about Hill? You didn't want him either, Antoine. What if he turns out to be a great corner? I mean, they're high school kids. That's the part you got to remember. I know you didn't like all the relationship talk. Sometimes, the ones that, make you work the hardest. Now we're talking about recruiting, but, they're the most desirable. The thrill of the chase. All right, I'll end it there. I'll let it play out. Tomorrow, it is the return of Jim Scarcelli. He will be with us, the scar of the telestrator. And we'll talk about what happened through his lens, what he's thinking about, how he thinks it's all going to play out. That's Jim Scarcelli tomorrow, the former Wolverine. Thanks for watching. If you have a moment, really appreciate when you go, if you're listening on the podcast, to rate and review. That's great. Leave a message. All those things helps boost up our profile and all that. And then we could continue to come out here every day and talk Michigan, which is all of our favorite thing to do. So if you're on Spaces and you're listening, I try to connect every day. Sometimes I forget. You can always jump in there, feedback, all of that. So until tomorrow, everybody have a great day. Bye. See ya. Thanks, Spaces.